no amount of rain could dampen another week for Toronto FC as they picked up a big victory in the Canadian Championship and a pair of clean sheets. We'll chat the first ever 416/Dufferin/Downsview/Toronto Derby this week on Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks. We'll also discuss just the latest Italian to be linked to Toronto FC. And with all that Italy talk, it's only natural that we bring back one of our favorite guests, John Molinaro of TSU Republic. We'll join the show in 15 minutes or less to chat a number of topics. But first, my name is Mitchell Tierney. I'm joined as always by Michael Singh and Jeffrey P. Nesker, which means there's more people on the show today than there were at BMO Field on Wednesday night.
Oh, no, man. Right before this, you told us you didn't practice that intro, but I got to tell you, buddy, you nailed it. Execution, delivery.
Yeah, I got
everything.
Goosebumps. Yep, absolutely. Love the shirt. Love the new purchase. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a big week. It's a big week for the Toronto Blue Jays.
It is a big week. Absolutely.
And I know our guest John Molinaro is such a big baseball fan, so I
maybe the biggest in the city.
Maybe the biggest baseball. We'll ask him about it. We'll ask him how he thinks the Jays are doing.
We absolutely should. I think it will work out wonderful for everyone and everyone to everyone wonderment. There were, the shot against the legends that hey, there you go. Legit told you to take Dufferin Street home. But Google isn't the best harbinger of directions. If you've ever been in a city you don't know very well and use Google Maps, sometimes it's going to be horrific. Oh yeah, thanks, Graham. Episode 62. Love it. Love to see it.
What's going on, everybody? If you guys have any comments, questions in the chat for either us or John Molinaro,
definitely not Mitch because he's adjusting his fortress of Mitchitude.
Don't worry about my Ethernet cable. We're just keeping the internet buzzing here. That could have been a massive issue. We're good now.
Can't post comments to some destinations. I've never seen that error message before. StreamYard, what the hey now?
Well, that transitions us greatly into what I did want to talk about next, which is just that we did want to acknowledge there'll be a few changes on the show starting here this week. Nothing major in terms of the interruption of the show you come to expect, but our partners over at Homestand Sports have moved over to a new site called The Parlay, and this transition has meant that a lot of responsibilities for them in terms of pumping out all that good content that you've come to expect from the Parlay. So that also means we've lost a few members, which means you're going to see a far more jittery Jeff for a couple of weeks as he tries to figure out how to produce this show as well as be a guest,
be a host on it. Yeah,
exactly. So that'll be part of it. But we'd be remiss if we didn't say a serious thank you to producer Sophia, who is a massive part of making the show into what it is today. Through organization and patience with us and everything else. And also Edwin, who wrote all the show recaps and the descriptions. You can definitely, expect to see, as we said, much of the same from us moving forward, but the show wouldn't be what it is today without those two. So serious thank yous to both of them. We're just grateful for their contribution.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys, I'm sure a lot of you have read Edwin's great articles, not even just recaps, just like essentially narratives like based on the show on the Waking the Red website. It's just absolutely fantastic. And obviously we're going to miss Edwin and Sophia's contributions to the show, but onwards and upwards, gentlemen. We move.
Yeah. We move right along into our guest for this week. It seems like John Molinaro is here, so we'll bring him on.
Hey John, how's it going?
Hey guys, how are you?
We're good.
Oh, doing well. Now joined by John Molinaro, TFC Republic.
Before you joined the show, John, we were just talking about how big of a baseball fan you are, and I told him that we wore this just for you to spice it up. Big week for the Jays, eh, John? I know you'll be in attendance, right?
You tell me, are they what's going on with them? Are they in playoff contention? I honestly don't know.
They play baseball. They play a sport called baseball, which is a pitcher
that much.
And a batter. Okay.
But I think are they in the playoff mix?
There's 6 games left. They're 1 game out of a playoff spot, and they're facing the team that's essentially right in front of them in the New York Yankees at the Rogers Center this week, as capacity expands to 30,000. So it should be a pretty exciting week for any Jays fans out there, but we didn't bring John on to talk baseball, guys.
We sure didn't.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
Yep, yep.
John
And
said
he's-
he'd give us John said he'd give us about 20 minutes, but after that, I was expecting a 20-second little in and out after Michael opened
gotta
opened
go
it like that. But yeah, let's start with Wednesday. This past Wednesday, and given how the season has gone for Toronto FC, obviously certainly not to expectation in the league season. How important was it to grab that win against York United and get that Canadian Championship run off to a good start?
Well, very important, Mitch. I mean, obviously, like you said, the season hasn't gone at all like they had envisioned. So, I mean, it's kind of sobering to say, but this is all that they have left is the Canadian Championship because it's a trophy they haven't won in whatever it is 3 years now. Plus, it's a gateway into the Champions League, so that still remains a vital, important priority for the club. And I think it was important not just to win on last Wednesday, but to do so in a convincing fashion because. I mean, with all due respect to York United, they're clearly not up to the standard of of an MLS side. So, it wouldn't have been enough for TFC just to squeak by like a 1-0 win. I think they had to really lay a bit of a marker down and win so comprehensively. And as much as Jim Brennan said afterwards that the score didn't really reflect the sort of level of play and the balance of play. I mean, I think he's right in the sense that it should have been worse. It should have been 5 or 6 nothing.
Thank you.
So yeah, so I think it was really important to sort of as I said, not just win, but win so convincingly, and we'll see how they can carry that on into the next round against Pacific FC.
Yeah, let me follow that up, John, because it feels like we're in free fall. I mean, we were very, very, very afraid as a fandom going into that York United game, and the result maybe sort of puts in sharp relief just how rudderless we are as a fandom right now. So I want to compare, because you were there, and I seem to do this with you every time you're on this season. I want to compare 2021 to 2012. And do you think we'll beat our worst point total? Do you think we'll do less than 23 points at the outset of this season? That's my first question.
It's a tough one, Jeff. I mean, I think when you look at sort of the past 4 games, not so much the results, but the performances, I think it offers a little glimmer of hope that they're starting to get things right, and that perhaps, they can sort of put, a string of positive results and, future performances together. So I'll take the over on that. I'll say that.
Okay.
But I mean, they're certainly not going to smash it by any sort of means. I mean, if they do sort of get more points than they did in 2012, then it'll be just by, a few.
By blind luck. Yeah, I mean, I saw the title of your article on TFC Republic, and it gave me hives because in 2018, I had to write variations of that same sentence over and over again every week. Are we back? What's going on with TFC? It became word salad. What do you think? And also, I'm going to plug the Aaron Vinter video diary because it couldn't have hit at a better week. Everybody go and subscribe to TFC Republic and watch John wax about Aaron Vinter for a couple minutes. You can't go wrong. John, what do you think were the factors contributing to this woeful season? Do you think it's COVID plus bad luck, or do you think that COVID is secondary to this and this was in the mail and COVID just exacerbated it?
I think it's the latter. I think the COVID just sort of exasperated it. I mean, you have to go back to, January in the preseason with the hiring of Chris Armas. I mean, it's easy to say now looking back on it in hindsight, but it was, the worst possible move. And I say that with all due respect to Chris, because I think he's a nice enough guy, but he seemed to, I just don't think he was a right fit for the team. I think, what he wanted to do, tactically remake this side was, a ridiculous decision. And, the fact that he was indulged by, Ali Curtis in this sort of enterprise about wanting to take the team away from what it was under Greg Vanney to playing this more sort of pressing style was just a massive mistake, especially when he didn't have the players to do it. I mean, it's one thing if he goes into sort of the interview process when he's sort of a candidate for the job and it says to Ali Curtis, look, this is what I want to do. What do you think? Okay. And then Ali, to a certain extent goes out and gets some of the players that can sort of like play that style, but that wasn't done. I mean, they made a conscious decision to stick with the roster that they had, even with this new coach, because they didn't want to have too much of, they wanted to have some sort of continuity. So it was really a recipe for disaster right from the beginning. And, you really have to question, their decision to bring in Chris Armas, because again, I think it was just a very mediocre, uninspired hire. I appreciate that he had previous, connection with Ali Curtis, but it just seemed like, that wasn't enough a qualification for him to get the job, or it shouldn't have been. And then to sort of tactically remake the team just seems so needless. I mean, especially when you look at, the success it had under Greg Vanney. I appreciate that new coach wants to come in and he wants to put his imprint on the team.
Of course.
That's understandable. But to the extent that he did it, I mean, it was just, I was really dumbfounded right from the beginning. And,
yeah, you're dancing around a word that I don't like to say, but it's so mawkish and amateurish, right? Like, these are executives in a professional sports environment. How did we see this and they didn't? And if all signs point to confusion, right? Like, it really, really does. I've made my peace with the Curtis hire, because I don't think we were getting Laurent Blanc and I don't think we were getting Patrick Vieira, and I think their back was against the wall. And then you start asking your friends if they're free this weekend, right? You're so I don't fault that in the slightest. I fault him when he arrived, not adapting in any way, shape, and form. I think that cooked his goose, and he has to own that. But yeah, I appreciate that this sort of dance that we're doing, but at the end of the day, is it naivete? Were they too big for their britches, or was everything just so completely wrong-ended, playing out of Orlando, that they couldn't see the forest for the trees? And I think I'm the best. I think the third option is the one that I choose, because it allows for the chaos without painting everybody as
Did anyone keep up with Jeff's analogies there? Or was it just me that just got lost there?
All right, someone ask a question. I'm done
the
here.
Forest among the trees, definitely.
Come on.
Before I get into my question, I think Matthew poses a really good question here in the chat. So let me just bring this up quickly. So Matthew's asking, if we finish the season on a run, is it going to reduce the depth of change this offseason?
Great question.
John, we'll throw that to you. What do you believe?
I really don't think so, Michael. I mean, I think there is sort of major changes that have to be sort of undertaken at this club, regardless of what goes on the rest of the season. I mean, I think that they have to, first and foremost, that team has to take a serious look at itself at the back line, and sort of, if not overhaul the defense, then certainly bring in, one or two new recruits. I mean, Omar Gonzalez is in the last year of his deal, and he has an option year next year. So, that's certainly something that you have to sort of look at. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say Omar Gonzalez kind of really fallen off this season compared to
a cliff. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, if that's a team option, that's a quick decline, John.
Absolutely. I would be stunned if they pick up that sort of option. But that said, they still have to go out and bring in, I would say it's just one or two other recruits to really solidify the back line. Mm-hmm. You have to figure out what you're doing with Josie Altador, because, I think the question is going to emerge as to whether, the team buys him out to get that salary hit off the roster. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But then you have to go out and replace him. So I think for me, those are the two big things. But yeah, they could go 8-0 the rest of the way for the regular season. But I really think that there has to be, a lot of change this off season. There has to be serious questions asked about, how they're going to get guys like Noble Okello and Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy, more into the lineup next year, because I think that's kind of been one of the few things many things I think people are disappointed about, is that, you would expect to see more reliance on the youngsters during this final stretch of games. And Okello played against Colorado, and I thought he did really well. But Marshall-Ruddy, for reasons I can't quite understand, has been rotting away on the bench, for most of the season. And it just strikes me as odd that he, especially now, wouldn't be given more of a run out. So I think, they have to figure out a way to get those guys more involved next year.
Yep.
Yeah, that's certainly one of the things we were hoping to see down the stretch, of course, is some guys come in and kind of play for their job next season. And like you said, it's been a little disappointing to not see some of those younger guys. But one guy who's certainly made a good case for himself of late is Jacob Schaffelberg. What's kind of changed in his game that's allowed him to have the level of recent success? Because he was pretty dominant against York. He scored. I mean, he had that goal taken away from him, but he's basically scored in 2 straight MLS games as well before this one. So what's it been about Schaffelberg that you think has made this transition to where he's finally getting that end product to his game?
Well, I think 2 things, Mitch. I think one, the fact that I think Javier just honestly rates him and really has kind of shown a lot of faith and belief in him by sort of throwing him out there, much more so than Chris Armas. But in an odd way, and this the second point, I think he's almost sort of flourished, especially with Pezuelo not there, in the sense that he's become more of a reference point in the attack and someone who, I mean, I don't know what you guys think about it, but I think over the last stretch of games, he's been TFC's most dynamic and dangerous sort of attacker going forward.
Absolutely.
He's really fearless in taking defenders on. And it seems like teammates are more and more looking for him, right? Trying to get him the ball because they know that he can make things happen. And I'm not sure that necessarily happens as much or to the extent that has happened with Pezuelo was there. And that's, Pezuelo is Pezuelo. Once he comes back, he's going to be sort of a major factor. So I'm not suggesting, just bench Pezuelo when he comes back. But I do think, oddly enough, that Jacob has sort of, benefited from Pezuelo not being there. And I'm really sort of not anxious, but interested to see how he does once the Spaniard does come back. And, are they able to link up, effectively? I suspect that they will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike?
And I think another factor in that, John, is obviously Jefferson Soteldo, because he usually occupies the left wing where Jacob Schaffelberg typically enjoys playing, and with Pezuelo in the lineup, then it becomes tougher to, I guess, get him into the lineup where he is most effective. But that being said, let me ask you a little bit about Jefferson Soteldo. And just, we got about a 20-game sample size so far. Unfortunately, he's been unable to play, I guess, with the other 2 designated players in this TFC roster for the most part. But what's your overall impression, I guess, of Jefferson in his first year at Toronto FC?
I'd give him a passing grade. I wouldn't necessarily say he's quite lived up to the DP sort of label. I think we've certainly seen sort of flashes of brilliance. When you look at sort of his creative playmaking ability and just the way he can sort of, create something out of nothing. He's, I think, been, one of TFC's most dangerous creators, and I think he leads the team in assists. So I think from that, it's been a great acquisition. But his goal production hasn't been quite what I think a lot of TFC fans would have expected. I think he has a tendency to hang onto the ball a little too long instead of looking for players in more dangerous positions. But overall, I mean, I think he's been a good addition to TFC. I don't think he's quite lived up to all the hype when he first signed. If you're looking at it, I mean, I would say just based on money, it's been probably a good TAM signing, but not necessarily a good DP signing. But it's still early, right? I mean, it's one season in, and with all sort of the chaos in the club, with starting in Orlando, all the injuries, not playing with much with Pezuelo and Altador, you have to take those sort of factors into consideration. So I'll be really interested, how he does and what progress he can make next season when presumably the team is in a much stronger position.
So we got a follow up from Matthew, another over under question, and that is over under that Curtis survives the off season.
I think he survives. I think he just signed a new deal. What was it, last year? I think
this off season.
This off season, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think if nothing else, I mean, I don't think TFC wants to walk away from that. I think there's going to be some sort of issue of wanting to maintain continuity, and I think it's the same reason why I expect Javier Perez to be back in the job next year.
That was my question.
I think they could lose the next 8 games, and I don't necessarily think they're going to sort of make a change unless Bob Bradley becomes available. Then if that's the case, then splash the cash and make it happen. But I suspect he's going to stay in LA. But I just think they like what they see in Javier. I think the players, he's earned the respect of the locker room, and the players really respond to him. I think he's made a good sort of some good changes to the team. I think his managerial style is well respected. He's a very thoughtful guy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Michael, you've talked to him as much as I have, and I think we can both agree he's a pretty cerebral, very student of the game, and I think that's kind of what TFC needs. He kind of reminds me of Greg Vanney in that sense, and I suspect that he's going to survive. But to get back to the question, I do think Curtis has survived, if for no other reason that I don't think they want to make another major upheaval this offseason, especially with if all the roster changes we're going to expect to happen. I think they're going to focus their attention on that and not so much on the GM.
Do you not see the potential for TFC land to explode in hubris if Curtis and Javi are around next season? I mean, I don't dispute your points, John, in any way, shape, and form, but this is a business that needs the fans to survive, and I think everybody is screaming for some kind of change at the front office. I worry that we're emboldening the pitchfork mob if we don't sacrifice one of those guys at the altar of public opinion. But all your points are fine. I see, I live on the internet because I can't go outside anymore. So
what I would say, Jeff, is like if one of the two were to go, I suspect it would be Perez, just because I think making a coaching change is a lot easier than making a GM change. And I think, again, I don't think they would want to sort of part ways with Curtis just after re-signing him in the offseason. Now, that said, I do think, Ali would be on a very short leash next year. I mean, that would be it. I mean, I think, if we're talking about another playoff-less year or another season that resembled anything close to this year, then I think you would have to get the Evo. And I take your point about fans being restless and clamoring for change. But I would also remind fans, and believe me, I don't want to sound holier than thou. I don't want to sound
no. Please, it needs to be said because I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I can remember after the 2014 season, people were not too impressed with Tim Bezbatchenko's kind of first full season in charge. I would humbly suggest that kind of worked out in the end.
Yeah.
He kind of was a major factor in turning the franchise around. So, sometimes a little patience is required. And it's certainly that was the case with Tim. It was certainly the case with Greg, and they worked out fine in both instances. So I'd like to see, I appreciate that people are clamoring for Ali Curtis's blood, but let's give it a little bit more time. Again, but that being said, I think next year is going to be a pivotal year for him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you're okay with Javi staying, despite the fact that Andrea Pirlo from your Juve might be coming to Toronto.
I knew someone had to bring this up. But you did, yeah.
Can I tell you, it would be the worst possible move.
Thank you. I agree. Absolutely terrible.
Obviously, as a Juventus fan and an Italian national team fan, a huge Pirlo sort of supporter. I think he was a world-class cultured footballer, but should never have been hired by Juventus in the first place. I mean, he was going to be under 23 coach, and then they fire Maurizio Sarri, and they just said, oh, okay, well, we'll pop in Pirlo. And it was far too soon for him. I mean, if anything, he should have did what Pep Guardiola did, was kind of start at Barcelona B before working his way to the senior team. And I think that was Pirlo's mistake. So, yeah, I mean, if TFC wants to go that route, I mean, God bless them. I think it would be a huge mistake, though.
Amazing.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm glad we got your take on that, because I feel like we needed. I don't even know where that rumor came from, but I've just seen it popping.
The Seba rumor. It led Seba led to Pirlo, and then eventually the entire Italian national team is going to come to TFC. So, yeah.
I mean, wouldn't mind that, but
yeah.
Before we let you go, John, what's coming up at TFC Republic? What can we expect over the next little bit?
Well, obviously a busy week because there's 2 home games, so I'll be all over that. Got a feature on Friday about kind of like things to look for at the end of the season. So talking about whether it's worth TFC thinking about shutting down Pezuelo for the rest of the year. I mean, he suffered the injury setback last week, and there's talk about him possibly coming back before the end of the year. But I wonder if they just sort of write it off and just say, look, let's just sort of shelve you for the rest of the year, let you rest and recuperate and bring you back stronger for next year. I think wouldn't it be the worst thing in the world? So I'll be looking at kind of like those kind of storylines. And then next week, obviously, with the Canadian men's team, I'll be setting those up. Going to be talking to Craig Forrest about his time
Nice.
playing at Pekka for the national team, and trying to speak to Jordan Hamilton, the former TFC forward, recently parted ways with Indy 11 in the USL. So trying to sort of catch up with him. We've been missing each other the last couple of days, but just wanted to see what's going on with him and where his future lies and whether he'll
Have you heard the rumors that there's European interest for J Hams, and that's why he? I read it on the Twitter app. I can't remember. It might be a completely unformed opinion, but it's an opinion, and I thought it was an interesting one because
I mean he'd be a player who I think would be a great fit for any team in the CPL. I think
I agree,
but whether he wants to take that sort of pay cut and play in that league is another matter entirely.
True.
So I mean, it's one of the things I hope to bring up with him.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, should I finally get a hold of him?
I'll be looking out for that, John, because I had an interesting chat with him before I guess his season started. To say he was motivated would be a very big understatement. I know he has some thoughts about Toronto FC as well, which might be a good segue into something for your article. So just keep that in mind when chatting with him. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, in Columbus too, like I know he's kind of spoken publicly about, he never thought he got like a fair shot there as well.
Yeah.
Surprising because, the connection with Tim, you would have thought, they would have given him some sort of look, but, fair play to him. I thought he did well when he went down to Indy and all things considered played well. I'm just really sort of interested in to see what's in his future and what lies ahead, because I do think there is a place for him somewhere, whether it's or MLS or USL or wherever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, John. It's been great as always.
No problem.
Cheers, John. Pardon?
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
We'll see you soon, man. Enjoy the press conference in like 2 minutes.
Cheers.
Yeah, we'll definitely get some more updates on Toronto FC from that, including, that bit of a bomb that he dropped that we might not see Alejandro Pezuelo again this season. I feel like that's that's a bit of a takeaway, considering that's something that.
What do you think, boys? Do you think that that's a smart play? I mean, we want him for the CAN champ, but
yeah,
if it's between him re-injuring himself versus the last 8 games we have to play, I say bench him. Let's give Schaffelberg a chance at the number 10.
Yeah, the issue is Jeff, is that like there's so much information we're missing there that I don't even know what the exact injury is on Pezuelo. Like there's so much information that it's just speculation, and it's tough to make a real decision without knowing all the facts there in terms of his condition. Like how big of a setback was it? Because he was ramping up, he was training again, but he had that setback. So I mean, again, obviously, if it's risk reward, you obviously you're not siding on the side of risk there, and you're gonna obviously be cautious with Pezuelo with nothing really left to play now in Toronto FC season. But if it's not much risk, then yeah, absolutely, you trot him back out, because this is still a team that I think has motivations of at least winning out like the rest of the season. Like they don't want to finish the season the way that they've been playing for the majority of the season. And I think they really made that statement the last couple of games. And also I feel bad for Soteldo, who's been having to kind of trot around and play link up top with someone like Patrick Mullins, who by the way has one shot on target this season, Jeff. One shot on target.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
Nobody's
That's
perfect.
Your boy, Jeff.
Nobody's perfect.
And also Dom Dwyer too. Again, no MLS goals still combined between the two players. And
it's
if
not
that's
ideal.
And you have, so essentially, I feel bad for Soteldo, who was brought in here and really advertised about the playing with someone like a Josie Altador, or playing with someone like an Ayo Akinola, playing with someone like a Pezuelo, or even like a Michael Bradley.
But does that give him license to sit and sulk for 6 months? I mean, I disagree with that. What do I like about Mullins? Everything. I like everything about Mullins. He's amazing, and he scores goals on FIFA like water. It's
ridiculous. I'm glad you said FIFA on FIFA.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I was just saying, like, that's why I would kind of bring Pezuelo back into the fold, because I think those guys also need chemistry together too.
In real
So,
game experience,
again,
that's a very good point. Very, very
we'll
good
see.
point.
We'll
Mhm.
see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's
Well,
going on there, and hopefully get a better
Danny's
update.
saying, Danny's given us a bit of a scroller, and it's Paz is 30 going into a contract year. I'd imagine his reps would want him to sit, and TFC would want him to play for Chan, and to see if re-signing him as a DP this offseason is even of interest. That's so
Danny,
loaded.
he's not in a contract year this year. He has at least one more year on his contract after this one. So next season would be, I guess, his contract year. And
well, that's what he's saying. He's going into a contract year.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so next season?
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
Next season is a contract. Like he could negotiate as for a pre-contract.
I think a lot of that decision, then, if we're going to get into that chatter right now, that depends on Pezuelo next season. Because I think KJ asked me this question when I was on his show not too long ago, and it's that, should Toronto FC re-sign Alejandro Pezuelo as a designated player? And my answer to that was, well, as Danny's pointing out, he's 30 years old, and we know what happened last time Toronto FC signed someone who was 30 plus to a bit of a contract extension as a designated player. Right? So if he's healthy and can stay on the field, absolutely. But if it's another one of these types of seasons where he's struggling again, then how could you really warrant playing a designated player that kind of price when he can't stay healthy? So I think a lot of that comes down to how he performs next season. But yeah, we'll see if there's interest.
There's a worry here because it seems like by virtue of reaction, the pendulum is swung from one extreme to the other. Right? We are at one point the team that was giving plum contracts to everybody on the wrong side of 30 and now we've been bit by that. So it's almost creating a reactionary brutalism. And it may cost Paz another contract, which, I'm not sure what the right answer is. It's just a trend that I've noticed. You know what I mean? Are we going to be a team now that the second the clock strikes on your 30th year on this earth, you turn into a pumpkin and you have to clean out your locker? I don't know. I think that's a very good point, Mike. But my worry is, when can other teams start approaching a player to sign a pre-contract on a free transfer?
It's 6 months left on his deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
they cannot touch him for the first 6 months of next season, right? Juve can't make. Okay, I got you.
Juve.
I mean, no, I'm just saying. No, I'm saying Juve because of Seba, right? Like that's how we got Seba. So So that's the example that sort of stuck in my brain. Yeah,
you definitely saved that. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Juve, gentlemen.
Yes,
I like it.
Let's talk about Andrea Pirlo. And John clearly shut it down very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
What are your guys' thoughts on Pirlo potentially coming to Toronto FC as TFC's next manager?
No, please God, no.
And what's the reasoning there, Jeff?
He doesn't know how to manage yet. This team can't be flight school for potential managers, and he wouldn't want to be here. I mean, this would be a step for him to recapture some kind of credibility, and then the second somebody comes calling from Europe where he wants to be, he's gone, right? So why would we be a stopgap for an unproven manager who can't? I mean, there's a YouTube video of him defending a corner that I'd just like to post here, because that to me is reasons 1 through 6,000 as to why Andrea Pirlo is not the right guy for here. It would be a step backward.
Mitch, what are your thoughts? Sorry, Jeff, I didn't mean to cut. I thought you were wrapping up there.
Never.
I don't know. I go back and forth on it. One, I don't know. Andrea Pirlo for me was still involved in one of the most embarrassing moments I've ever seen at BMO Field, which is when New York City didn't sub him on that one time, and the entire stadium just booed them. And it was this is tough. This is an away player. Clearly, I don't know, 15,000 people at that stadium had just come to see Andrea Pirlo play.
Mm-hmm.
And the second he wasn't, that was their main concern, and they're heading for the exits and just disappointed. But that's also that's what you get out of Andrea Pirlo or a big name like that, is just the fact that one, he would attract plenty of talent. Like players would want to come play for Andrea Pirlo. So in the recruitment sense, I feel like it would be good. He would also certainly do what Toronto FC have struggled to do lately. And obviously we joked off the top that there was definitely the rain added into that, but we've seen what the stands have looked like at BMO Field lately. You're getting a significant amount of fans just because Andrea Pirlo is the manager. I know that's not how you should pick a manager, but I'm just saying those are a couple of factors that are certainly in his favor.
Absolutely. I don't know if he'll be as strong a recruitment angle as you think he is. I think money talks, and our money plus Pirlo would be a great recruitment.
Yeah, but Toronto have that money.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, like this is a business, right? And we're looking at it from a strictly soccer standpoint. And after a dreadful season that TFC have had, what better way to sort of, I guess, ignite a fan base, especially, as many people are pointing at an Italian fan base, than bringing not only Andrea Pirlo, but also Sebastian Giovinco back to BMO Field. I mean, if I was just as a fan, that would get me back into the seats, at least to start with, to see how that's going. Because those are two guys who, I mean, we talked about Giovinco already, the best player who's ever played in MLS, best player to ever wear TFC jersey. And you couple that with Andrea Pirlo, who's obviously one of the greats. That's exciting for any casual fan. I know we like to get caught up on the internet here and look at hashtag TFC Live and look at what everyone's saying, but that's like 2% of the TFC fan base. If we're gonna get realistic here, right?
You're absolutely right.
That's probably not the market that they're essentially just trying to target. Obviously, they want to keep everybody happy, but the casual TFC fan, which is really who TFC's market really is, I think would be really excited about that move. Now, do I think it's the right move football-wise? Probably not, but business-wise, I think that can make a lot of sense.
Sure. But I think Seba eclipses any need for Pirlo on the attracting fans standpoint. So why bother doubling down? That would be my counter to the whole business.
I don't know if I necessarily agree there, because Seba's 30, turning to be 35 years old. I think everyone knows, like when you go to BMO Field, it's no longer for Seba to get you on the edge of your seat. At least that would be my sort of impression and take on all of it. I think he's a couple years removed of Sebastian Giovinco old. So I think,
and he's also never sat on the corner of a seat in his entire life. Andrea Pirlo's pulse is never raised above a standing heartbeat ever. So we don't have to worry about that. I think it's a bad move. I don't like it. I think it's a terrible idea. He cost a lot of money, and if we're willing to spend that money, there's a gentleman by the name of Bob Bradley in Los Angeles who hasn't signed an extension with LAFC, and I would much rather drive that bag of money to his house than Andrea Pirlo's. So,
I think to Mike's point, someone used the phrase "shiny new house" in the comment section. I think that's fair. Like, Seba's not new, as much as everyone wants to see him come back, and I definitely think he would reignite a certain portion of interest. He's not new. Andrea Pirlo's new, and obviously in world soccer a much, much bigger name than Sebastian Giovinco. So unquestionably, if you're bringing him here, it's more for the marketing side of things and more for that sort of thing than it is for the football standpoint. I think we all know his credentials are not incredible, even if he did coach, the best team in Italy, but we all saw what happened to the best team in Italy when he coached them. So we'll see. I mean, it's definitely something to watch, and at least something that we got to talk about and fill some time on this show.
Let me kind of segue for that quickly and just build off that, actually.
Awesome.
So I asked this question earlier in the year to you guys, and it was, in the offseason, this past offseason, I think we all agreed that TFC's coaching vacancy, that was one of the more coveted positions, not only in MLS, but I think all of North America, if not, the world. It's one of the most coveted positions, vacancies. That's like wide open. Do you think that's still the case? Hypothetically, this position's vacant.
I actually have to retract my enthusiasm for that in the preseason. I think you're right on paper, but I think the specifics of playing out of a hotel room and not knowing where their home ground was going to be, and the sort of weirdness that kind of metastasized in in TFC land made it a very unattractive position. So I think that, well, on paper, it looked like something worth pursuing. I think they found out really quickly that the people that they wanted, that was the level of ambition for what they wanted to hire was Fantasyland, and the reality was much, much, much lower than that. And if they and if they wanted to attract guys in the mid tier, they were going to have to make compromises they weren't willing to make, like give them more control over the roster, or give them an academy director gig that they weren't willing to do. So I think that looking back, with hindsight being 2020, just judging from the Armas hire, they didn't get what they wanted. They didn't get what they wanted. They were scrambling. So that definitely suggests that Javi's on a much, much cooler seat than the results would suggest, because they don't want to do it again. But it also fills me with fear that they will make a hire as binary as somebody like Andrea Pirlo, because big shiny and distraction. I don't know. I just I think that JMO, when we asked him, and this was surprising, I'm still processing it, I think he's got the finger on the pulse of that room better than we do. And I think that there's a malaise in upsetting the apple cart that we're not taking into account. That could mean that Javi stays. It could mean that Ali stays on a very, very short leash, but it does suggest they're not willing to go into the trenches and start looking to replace upper level positions anymore, especially in this offseason.
I definitely agree with Jeff in the sense that I think we downplayed the human impact that playing on the road and in the COVID situation would have on any coach, and we should have seen the warning signs with what happened with Thierry Henry, obviously, in terms of that situation, and
great shout,
leaving Club de Foot because of not wanting to travel and not wanting to spend another year or so away from his family. So, and I mean, let's look at our own coaching situation. There's a chance Greg Vanney stays. He mentioned that as his main factor in leaving Toronto FC, and I know there were several other factors, but there's a chance Greg Vanney's still coach of Toronto FC if they don't have to do the quarantine. Maybe not, but it's at least there's at least a chance. So I think there's actually, if Toronto FC want to go that route and bring in another coach, I think the position is much more attractive now than it was actually at the start of last season, even after a year where things have been disappointing and that sort of thing. Absolutely. I think right now, if you're looking for candidates, you're getting a better level of candidate than you would
1,000,000% agree
last year.
But I do think based on how we ended the season, anybody is going to come in with a machete, right? Any new coach, Armas came in with the desire to make good on his tactics. A new coach coming in on the back of this season is going to say, right in the interview, I am going to be brutal. Like, people are playing for their jobs in a training session because I'm not coaching a team that's going to be last in the standings next year. You're bringing me in to bring us back up, and these are my ideas. And I'm not out to protect anybody's feelings, which I think is something we lose if we keep a Javi on for the next season.
In that sort of same light there, Jeff, and just kind of built off what you guys are saying, like, this is now a project that I think TFC or whoever comes in next, hypothetically, there is someone who comes in next, that they're looking at this as an opportunity to get TFC back to the top. And you combine the fact that they're going to be given a budget that's probably the best in MLS, then it is an opportunity, because now they have something to work towards. Now they have something that actually, they can't get much worse than they are right now. So it's only going to be seen as progress for someone new that's coming in. Whereas when they came in last season, you're trying to build off those expectations, and those expectations are some of the best in the league. So I think, I see where you guys are coming from there, and it's an opportunity for any coach, really. If it's not Javier Perez, then someone else to really advance their career. And I think that it is a very good opportunity, because I still think there are some good pieces here. Just quickly, I want to address, obviously I'm seeing a lot of Ali Curtis banter in the chat. I want to address that quickly. And I think, Jeff, you're kind of on that same page too, where correct me if I'm wrong, that you believe Ali Curtis should be gone.
I think Ali Curtis brings something to the table, which is he wrote so many of these. He wrote or had a hand in writing so many of these roster rules. I think Ali is much better at finishing a deal than he is at player recruitment, and they should take that out of his list of chores. I think, somebody better than Ali at identifying talent identifies the talent and then hands it off to Ali to get the deal over the line. And that's why I think there's still a place for him at TFC. But I don't like his player recruitment. I know that there were extenuating circumstances this year. I really, really don't want to say the S word, but I will. I think that someone has to answer for Soteldo. There was no real reason we had to sign him other than the fact that he was there. You know what I mean? And in a business environment, you have to answer for mistakes like that. So
I think mistakes definitely a strong take there.
Listen, I didn't want to say it, but you asked me. So even if you don't want to label it with a capital M mistake, it's still underwhelming. Somebody still has to answer for that. And that leads to player recruitment, because I do not want my front office to come out with a parade of coulda, shoulda, wouldas, because that suggests they don't know what they're talking about, right? Like, I want the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, but measured with a certain bit of humility and accountability, right? I don't want the only answer from the front office to be just wait until the perfect day with perfect weather where the wind is at this level and we've got pause on the pitch and we've got Josie's back and everybody's smiling and everybody's well fed, because the variables make that a moot point, right? Like, I do want to hear that from the front office because it's an important point, but it can't be the be all and end all of everything. There has to be some accountability around the recruitment. And even if it's just a mea culpa, like, guys, we got 75% of this guy at a flea market deep discount fire sale. Maybe he's not as good as we hoped, but we took the chance. That's all the humility that would be enough humility for me. We don't see that. All we see that is just wait and see. He's going to be amazing once all of these different things are put into place, which is a non-answer, right? Like, it opens up the dialogue, but that can't be the end of the discussion.
You're doing that all on the basis where, I don't want to go down this road, but you're doing that all on the basis where you believe that Soteldo hasn't been great this season. Where, obviously I completely disagree with that, and I think he's been dealt like a completely terrible hand here.
Look at what Yvonne's saying. If I make a mistake at work, I raise my hand and I don't even make nearly as much as Curtis. And that's what I'm getting at, right? Like,
but he's not a mistake though. Why would he raise his hand and say he's a mistake when, like, it's been half a season where he's had to play with as the only designated player and link up at top with Patrick Mullins and Dom Dwyer? How can you outrightly say he's a mistake when he's 24 years old?
But how can you outrightly say he's a great player as long as he's playing with other players in a presupposed future where,
because he's already a great player. I mean, he has 3 goals and 7-8 assists this season. I personally, I'm happy with what
give him the golden boot,
especially when he's had to link up top with the players that he's been linking up with and trying to do everything himself. Sure. But I don't want to go down Soteldo's road again.
No. I think we need to give a couple more months.
My original point to Ali Curtis, and let's look at his resume so far with TFC. I think 2019, he went MLS Cup final, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2020, they were first in the Supporter Shields race with 4 games left to play. They finished second in the Supporter Shields race. And then obviously this season. Is it just one season where we're ready to a COVID-riddled season that we're just ready to cut him? Like, that's what I'm obviously, like, I get why TFC fans automatically turn to Ali Curtis and be like, okay, yeah, he's got to go. But there's so much more that goes into that, and this is really his first season as being the sole guy that's making up all the roster decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what he did this season wasn't making necessarily roster decisions. It was a lack of roster decisions, I think, is the biggest hit for him this season, because he didn't turn over the roster that's been so successful. Now he's seen that, okay, I mean, and obviously if you were to do that last season, people would be like, whoa, what are you doing? Why are you making such drastic changes to this roster that's been so good for so long?
Yep.
Right. And obviously, I think those are the one mistake that he's made. And the other mistake that he's made is obviously the extension of Josie Altador, which I think we can all agree.
I would have made the same mistake.
It's a business decision too, right? The resigning of Josie Altador there. So I find a hard time where people are like, okay, yeah, it's Ali Curtis's fault. Like, get rid of Ali Curtis. I mean, we haven't really seen what Ali Curtis can do. We haven't really seen him put in an opportunity to be like, okay, rebuild this roster. And I think that's why this offseason is going to be so crucial for his tenure here at Toronto FC
100%.
because he's going to be tasked with not only turning over this roster, but doing so quickly in a way that they can compete again next season.
Exactly.
And that's not an easy task for any general manager. And I think if there's one GM that might be up to it, it could be someone like Ali Curtis.
That was really well said, Mike. I agree with almost all of that.
The thing with Curtis is we've seen him do it before too. 2018 to 2019 Toronto FC, he was able to right a ship that obviously had a pretty awful 2018 season. Obviously, I think they're probably in better shape than they are now in terms of some of the contracts they had going and all that sort of thing. But
true.
With that being said, I think he definitely deserves another chance. Like one more. He's on his last string. Don't let me get don't get me wrong. Like the ice is thin with Ali Curtis, but I think he's done enough here where he's shown that he does have the ability to build a winning team in this league. The coaching hire with him is interesting though, because I don't think we've seen him perfectly aligned, even though it was his guy. Like we've said, it was his friend. I don't think he's had a coach that has been able to carry out the vision of the players that he's brought in yet. I think we're maybe seeing it a bit with Javi right now, but that's going to be an interesting part of the dynamic there. Because if he's on such thin ice, do you bring in a coach that maybe if Curtis goes can still continue things on, or do you bring on a coach that straight up wants to play the exact way Curtis wants to play? Because there's clearly been some disconnect from the second he came in, and that's going to
be a very interesting kind of lane or avenue that TFC, Bill Manning, whoever it is, are going to have to decide. Is it going to be, we know Ali Curtis, he likes building a team that's kind of similar to the Chris Armas identity, where it's, really high tempo, really pressing team. And I don't know if that's necessarily been Toronto FC's. I mean, it hasn't been Toronto FC's identity really the past like 5-6 years, right? So I think that's a great point. Is Bill Manning going to, and Ali Curtis, because I don't want to say like Ali Curtis doesn't have any say in here, but are they going to come to a resolution here where, okay, the type of team, I think with the players that we have in place, this is what we need to play. It's going to be more possession oriented, more on the ball type of players, as opposed to players who are just physically gifted and obviously still good players. But it's going to be interesting to see how TFC, I guess, retool and rebuild this offseason. And it's going to be one to watch, man. Like that's exciting for me as a fan, because I always like the GM side of things in terms of roster building, and I think everyone who plays like FIFA career mode or what is it, Football Manager, like I think you guys can all spreadsheet game, exactly. You guys can all see that fun side of it. So I think there's gonna be a lot of armchair. There's going to be a lot of armchair GMs here this season, so we'll see. We'll see what's going on.
Okay, our armchair GM, who do we buy out, Omar or Josie?
You don't have to buy out Omar. His contract's going to be expiring.
Oh, I thought
it's an option. It's an option next season.
Oh, it's a team option. Okay, well then there is no question. You buy out Josie, and Omar.
If they buy someone out, right? That's an if.
That's an if. Interesting. We haven't talked about Can Champ, which no one's talking about because it hasn't been scheduled yet.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, that's definitely a weird wrinkle in all of this is we don't know when Toronto FC will play the next game. We do know who they'll play against Pacific, which will obviously be an interesting one given how solid Pacific has looked both in the Canadian Premier League and in the Canadian Championship so far, beating Cavalry obviously in the last round after beating the Vancouver Whitecaps. I mean, the difference here, obviously, Mike was absolutely right in Toronto FC. The difference in quality is way more.
Wow.
Like we have to give him credit because he was absolutely on point there in terms of the difference.
He wasn't worried at all, not even in the slightest.
Tweet it out. Mike was right. Let's go.
Yeah, we'll probably have to clip that.
Said, the thing with Pacific, the slight difference with them, one, they're just a better team. I mean, they have at least a couple, I would say, MLS caliber players on that team who could make the step up. Guys like Caden Chung, even a Taryn Campbell, like those are good players. The other thing is the difference between believing and knowing you can beat an MLS team, and Pacific knows they can beat an MLS team. So especially if this game's played at Starlight Stadium, it'll be a tricky one for Toronto FC. Unquestionably, Toronto FC go into this as the heavy favorite once again, especially with what they showed against York. But it's going to be a fascinating matchup. I'm very excited that these teams got drawn against each other, because this is the best team in the Canadian Premier League.
Yeah, we still don't know where this game is going to exactly.
That too. Yeah, we don't know where or when. We just know
we don't know where or when. It's the same for the Forge CF Montreal game, which I'm also super excited about. Oh, we just lost Mitch.
Anyways, that's still being decided. I know. So essentially, what's supposed to happen? I think both teams is what I've been told. Is both teams are supposed to come to some sort of agreement, and then if an agreement can't be made, then essentially it'll be a coin flip. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those meetings will probably go down sometime this week, and then we'll get a date, venue, time of when that game will go down. And in my opinion, I kind of see this being a closer game than TFC York, because
I agree.
As Mitch said. They're the best team.
Would you prefer it at BMO, or do you think it would be fun to watch TFC go to Starlight, the hydro pole, land of the hydro pole?
That's like, as a TFC probably supporter, like I would say obviously BMO Field would be more ideal. I would be able to attend that match, and that would obviously give TFC a better chance. Absolutely wants that to be played there out on the West Coast, and I think that would be, as you mentioned, they're kind of like a spectacle, because you know, we know what happened when Vancouver and
damn right, here comes Mitch, he's back.
Pacific played in that game, and we know about the stories that came from that game. And
great game.
I think there'd be some similar stories with TFC heading there as well. But personally, if I'm gonna go out on a limb already, I'm gonna say TFC are gonna win that one again, fairly comfortably, I'd say.
Love it, Mike. Forge CF Montreal, which is a tie that I'm also looking forward to.
Another good one.
I think Forge has an outside chance. I mean, they're a team made up entirely of forwards now. It's ridiculous. They only have forwards. But I mean, Montreal, they're a tricky one this year. I mean, Wilfred Nancy is a great coach, and I have tons of respect for him. And I think it will be a really interesting tactical matchup between two very cerebral coaches, i.e. Smirniotis and Wilfred Nancy. So yeah, I knew someone was gonna bring up Omar Brownie.
Yeah.
I knew someone was gonna bring up Omar. I can't. I know I support Forge, but I can't cheer for that guy. I'm sorry. I can't. I mean, I'll cheer for him tonight because it's versus Independiente in the CONCACAF League. So that would be fun, because I hope he has a celly where he pulls off his Forge jersey and has the Independiente jersey underneath. But I can't cheer for him versus anybody else.
Yeah, Forge is another one of those teams that's battle tested too, right? Like you mentioned the CONCACAF League. They played a significant amount of games in that. Now they're obviously two-time Canadian Premier League champions as well. So like, that's a team that, like, as much as we said about Pacific, like, that's a team that also believes in themselves and has the quality to back it up. I mean, on paper, they're probably the best Canadian Premier League team ever in terms of the experience and the quality they have.
100%.
All of those guys.
Now, if Forge beats Montreal and TFC beats Pacific, can we do a double header and play the 2020 final and then the 2021 final in one day?
You know, it's like Canada soccer, so they're going to like. Yeah, it's not even going to be two different games. They're just
it'll just be both. Yeah.
You know that's going to happen, right? If both these teams are in the final, they're just going to award the double championship to whoever.
Get it? I'm calling Canada Soccer, and I'm saying I want two legs at the same venue, aggregate math, so we can talk about away goals over like the fourth pint of the day, because that'll be terrific. Yeah. And an intermission in between, and you all have to change. You all have to move seats between the two games. To
the only thing is that game is promised to be played at Tim Hortons Field, so obviously not this year's final, but the 2020 final. So they that's
only a 45 minute bus ride? We can all just get on shuttle buses from BMO and take it down the QEW to Tim Hortons Field, just en masse.
Including
That'd
the
be
players.
that'd be
Kevin.
amazing.
Producer Kevin just said you need to send a fax to Canada Soccer, which is
Who has a
fair
fax
enough.
machine? Does Kevin have a fax machine? I need to
I
borrow
don't
your
know, but
fax machine.
Canada Soccer probably does, and they might
Yeah.
use that as their
That
medium
reminds me of some of the
Hey.
film grant offices. You still have to send them.
Can we roll an injury update? Because I think I have a pretty
Yeah,
decent
let's
one.
do it.
Sure. Yeah. Let's-
Just give me a
let's
second.
finish off the
Gotta
show with
find it.
that, I think.
Yeah, I don't even know where it is anymore. It's been so long. All right, boys, here we go.
It's the Michael Singh Injury Report.
Love it.
Cool.
Love it.
So here's what I'll say. Obviously, we have some season-ending injuries. Iowa Canola, Subasa Endo, Ralph Priso. Those guys are all done for the season. They've officially been ruled out. Josie Altador, we know now his surgery was actually a heel surgery. And the 6-week mark for his injury, because the team put out a press release back on August 19th, and they said he'd be out for up to 6 weeks. And that 6-week mark is actually next Thursday. So keep an eye out, because Javier Perez told us
I
that
love it.
if he were to guess, and this was without speaking to the medical staff, Josie Alta would be back after this international break that's coming up.
Damn.
So we'll see if that actually plays out to fruition. Now, when the first surgery first happened, I was told that it's unlikely that Josie Altador plays again this season. But we'll see. We'll see how this kind of plays out, because that was before TFC said up to 6 weeks. So we'll see what happens there. Moving along here, you have Jordan Perusa, who lower back injury. He's ruled out
Such
for
a
the head of
lucky
this
timing.
match. Yeah, seriously. Because Dom Dwyer is also ruled out for this match with a lower body injury. Chris Mavinga also ruled out for this match. We saw he had suffered like an Achilles or calf injury, whatever that was. And Eric Zavaleta also ruled out for this match.
Wow.
So there's some death pieces. I will say, Pezuelo, I believe, was actually ruled out for this match, but he's listed as questionable, which makes me believe that he is actually getting closer to a return as opposed to being shut down, as sort of John Molinaro alluded to at the beginning of the show.
Fair.
But that's probably the longest injury report we've had since
Armis.
yeah.
Armis is,
since Armis Ball Z.
25
Yep.
out of 10
His boot
training
camp.
Yeah. Man, that seems like
Pilates
so
with
long
Chris
ago.
Armis. 2-man
Yeah.
enter, 0-man lead. Yeah, that's bad. That's a bad injury
Yeah,
report.
actually,
Mhm.
John Molinaro is saying that Perez says Pezuelo will in fact be out tomorrow, but that he could play some minutes on the weekend for Chicago.
Ooh.
Like
So-
for the Chicago, did we trade him? We traded him to Chicago
Yeah,
Fire.
we
He's gonna-
Max Cerruti'd him. We just left him in the away dressing room.
I did
He's
say
gonna-
versus Chicago, didn't I?
No, you
I
said
think-
for
I think-
Chicago Fire.
I don't know. I think
my bad.
whatever. Yeah.
It's all right. I'm gonna jump on all of those grammar things because that's what I do.
100%.
We were gonna talk about FIFA ratings, but I mean,
I don't know if that's the greatest audio. Here's the main takeaway. Almost every Toronto FC player got downgraded this season.
Yeah.
Some of them got downgraded more than others. Let me pull up I have a couple that really did. Biggest JMO dropped 4 from a 70 to a 66. Dom Dwyer dropped 4 from a 68 to a 64. Michael Bradley, Westberg, and Gallardo all dropped 3, which I think is fair enough considering we don't even know if Erickson Gallardo plays soccer anymore. And the boys who got the boost, all the Canadians, which is nice to see.
Yep.
Io going from a 59 to a 66. Richie from a 67 to a 71, and Oso is now a 72, up from a 70. So the big boost, I think Canada's been terrible to play with for like several years in FIFA, but this year they might actually be some fun, which is.
but we don't have
nice
our
takeaway.
our keeper. There's no Milan. He doesn't exist on FIFA. You would have to create him.
Yeah, they don't have the rights to his league.
No. We might see him. We won't see him in Ultimate Team, but we might see him as like if you're playing in other modes as a usable player. Just because sometimes they do that with national team guys. They did that with Gallardo last year, even though
True enough.
he wasn't in FIFA for some reason.
True enough. My big takeaway is, why is there an American flag on Westberg's card? Shouldn't it be a French flag?
No, he's actually an American youth national team player.
Mhm.
Huh.
He,
You learn something
think-
new every day.
I don't know if he was born here, but he definitely has American citizenship.
Weird.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
Yep, there you go.
I had to look like 3 times for him because I was looking for the French flag and I couldn't find him. So and then I found him right beside Bones. He's 2 points lower than Bones, 66 to a 68. Yeehaw.
Cool. So
Cool.
TFC this week, we got FC Cincinnati on Wednesday, and then we got the Chicago Fire on Sunday. Which, if this was any sort of meaningful games, like, we'd be really excited because TFC have an opportunity to pick up points, but
They're not.
They're not, and it's
And
just.
we ain't.
But it is an opportunity to keep their streak going. You know, at least we can honestly say they've been playing some good football of late, or at least better football of late. And that's without some key crucial pieces. I mean, last match they were missing Ayo Akinola, Josie Altador, Michael Bradley, Alejandro Pezuelo, Mavinga went down injured. Like, the list goes on and on and on. But they still managed to really, play their game plan to perfection against Colorado and come away with that 0-0 draw against a team that's really unbeaten in their last 10 games or now 11 games. So, I mean, that was a great result there on the road. And now it's 4 straight matches where they've done that. So let's see what happens here as they head into 2 games they should win. What I will say quickly about FC Cincinnati is FC Cincinnati in their last 17 games, by the way, they have a new head coach now, but in their last 17 games, they have 2 wins. Both of those wins
against Toronto FC.
Both
are
against Toronto FC. They could win. They've already won the season series against TFC.
Oh my goodness.
They're already there. But if they win,
the other Trillium Cup, do they get the Trillium Cup now?
No, they get the Hellas Trillium Cup.
Right. Yeah.
If they beat us tomorrow, then we're tied in the all-time record. It's 3-2 for TFC right now, and it'll be 3-3 split as opposed to 4-2. So, yeehaw.
So there is a lot to play for them in terms of TFC's long-term pride here, I think.
Yeah. True enough.
All right.
All right, boys.
Yeah, let's blow the full-time whistle there. Thanks again, John Molinaro. Be sure to go check out all his great work at TFC Republic. Really is must-read and watch content for Toronto FC fans. He's promised you'll see our familiar faces over there, so make sure to go check that out and rewatch the show there. Also, make sure to check out our new MLS Predictions League we are doing with our friends over at the Parlay. We'll give you some expert or not so expert picks on some marquee matchups from around the league each week. So looking forward to that again. And as always, we really do appreciate all the feedback, questions, comments we receive during the show. They really help us structure this show and think about things that maybe we forgot or brushed over. So they're always very helpful, and we do see all of them, even if we don't acknowledge all of them all the time because there are a lot. But
I'm not bringing up any of the ones that slag Mullins. I'm just telling you that right off the hop. Like, you can write it, and I'll look at it, but it's not ever coming up on the show. So
every week we're sure to get at least one person asking about Erickson Gallardo. So we do see all of those, even if we don't always think it's like the most.
Well, I mean, we don't know what no one knows.
We also don't know where in the world is Erickson Gallardo other than in the press box with Alejandro Pezuelo. But of course, we'll be ramping up our Canada coverage again next week as things get critical for the national team once again, and we're definitely looking forward to that on the show. But until then, on behalf of Jeffrey P. Nesker, Michael Singh, I'm Mitchell Tierney. Until next Tuesday.
Oh man, did I ever screw up being able to get this stupid video?
Here we go.
All right, bye.